back in 1999. And at that time, Shalom. At that time,
Shalom?
yes, I'm Joe.
I'm Steve Jacob.
At that time, anything that was produced Shlomo was really questionable quality. Really took the time or the effort to be part of the circus, to do things that were not Hashem will interfere, really in beautifying what he had created. These things were put out sort of, they were like pirated CDs and tapes and cassettes, and everybody was selling them illegally without any rights to the family or to him. So I remember when we put this CD, and this is one of the originals. And Yaqub, you'll appreciate this. We went to the effort of also putting a classical picture on the CD itself. And as things were being produced at the time, there was nothing like it in Jewish, nothing to reflect the kind of stuff that was being produced out there in the real music world. Until this came along with a booklet in it, with words, with some beautiful photos, here to unpublished photos. And here's what I wrote on the inside cover. A word about the music. The wonderful collection of songs originally recorded in 1986 by Shlomo Carlebach and his friend Neil Seidel as a video documentary of Shlomo's life. The tapes were forgotten for almost a decade. They were discovered 12 years later and retrieved from the filmmaker to be produced as a labor of love in its present format. The music creates a feeling of being at a live concert, and then I conclude by saying it's really been a mamash an honor to work on this. For your enjoyment, and as an act of devotion to our Rebbe and expression of love to his family. Family needs to be loved. This is Pesach 1999. So it's very interesting because the genesis of this CD, by the way, it's one of the really special CDs. I know we're talking about books, but if you want to check out, best CDs of Shlomo, this one is called Open Your Heart. It has a picture that was taken by Joan Roth. Joan Roth had the unbelievable, distinct honor to be Shlomo's semi-official photographer. I say this with a chuckle because whenever you see pictures that were taken of Shlomo, you can always tell that he's holding back something. Something is held back. Not here. Yaqub just reminded me that Shlomo had just come out of a mikveh. And he never would have allowed himself to be photographed like this, except for Joan Roth. By the way, Joan Roth is a published photographer. She has done things with Jewish women, Ethiopian, Aliyah. She's really a celebrated soul. Lives in New York today, continues to admire her trade. But it's a very intimate picture. His hair is furled, it's unkempt. His beard, if you knew him and if you had contact with him, he customarily would pin his beard underneath. There would be hairpins could see it sideways. You know, a haircut holding his beard down. But this is when he came out of the infant, which is sort of, you know, let your hair down. He just didn't mind to be photographed because he never in a million years thought that it would show up on an album cover, you know, 20 years later. Now, his kids also were very upset with me because even though I had permission to use the image, it belonged to the photographer, but they thought, you know, as children, you have a certain image. He was, by then he had passed away, and you have a certain image of the way you want to be home with your father. And this, it wasn't quite the image that they had in mind. So I said to them, you know, 20 years from now, people will appreciate this image of Shlomo, and they'll see what a, you know, what a regular kind of a guy he was, because he had his beard down in public, in the red places. So I see this and I get emotional because we tracked down a videographer. And this is a typical Shlomo story. Somehow something, this videographer was a little miffed. He wasn't paid for the work that he had done. Well, he didn't pay. So he didn't get paid. So he decided he would hold on to it. So I had to purchase the videotapes from him. And then we went into the studio and stripped the music out of it. Yes, we took the voice print off of the video through an amazing Apple application. And we stripped the music, took it into the studio, and discovered that there was Shlomo playing with a guitar. And if you're a musician, you understand what I'm saying. He burned the music in. It was literally he was the only guitar on that. So we proceeded to quadruple the guitar sound to get a sense of velocity from just if we didn't hear it, just heard it as a single voice. And then we brought a choir of people, including myself, which we added was another layer put on top of this voice print from the video. And we built levels onto the tape and created what is, I think, one of the best things. Nobody should know how it was done.
Well, you do such a good job of keeping it secret.
Yeah, thank you. But it really is, it's a live concert.
Well, Rabbi Joe,
Nobody took the time to really record it properly live. The best that we can do. So I'm reminded of a...
well, let me just add here, free, because I opened the end of What Do We Know, and I have 4 CDs being featured, and I'm quoting Carlebach, whom I've been owing a lot of money to, but make a deal with them. And I see you open your hearts, and I remember that CD. I have it. And I said, all right, give me 5 copies of that one. We need to have that one. So is it the right CD? Yes. And so we have actually a wide selection of promo CDs for anybody who doesn't have one.
Right, great. I'm glad that he's still available.
Yeah.
So I'm remembering a Shlomo Torah. I look at this person that's in this time of the year on the reading the text. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his other sons. So you say, what a terribly unfair statement for the Torah to make. How could the Torah say such outrageous things? How could a father say 11 sons How can he say that Joseph is more than children? What an unfair So Shlomo explained it in this way. It stayed with me. It's like a signature story for Hanukkah. Because it explains, we know that Joseph was the first exilic Jew. He went into Egypt, sold down there, no one was born. He was forced down there. And it says that Jacob had to give Joseph more than he gave his other son. What does that mean? What could it mean? How do you understand that in the context that he's, that one child over all? So it says that all of his children, to all of his children, pass down the tradition. But understanding that Joseph would be the first Jew in exile, he gave him something extra. He actually gave him certain fortification so that he should endure, that he should be able to withstand the wind of change. He gave him something extra. In this way, when it said he loved them, it's more than all of the children, sons. It meant that he had to, in some way, instill in him the key to survival. He gave over to him what turned out to be the key to survival. Now, Hanukkah is connected to Chinuch, and it's Ish Ubeito. It's a person in a household. It requires a home to light candles, menorah, and it's the kind of tradition that we don't pass off by teaching as much as we do it by doing, by example, by displaying the menorah, as a remembrance of the Simon Niflaot that occurred to us, but it's a holiday where you have to instill it in your children in the way that it makes greater impact than just simply, teaching them on a sefer or a text. You have to literally instill it in the way that will prevail them in the worst of times and in the best of times. So in the context of this, you now understand why the Torah can say that Jacob loved Joseph more than his son. Because he would see at the Nebuah, see ahead that he would need this extra in order to survive. Survival is really, when you talk about Shlomo, he came on the scene during the 60s. It was a tumultuous time of discord. And I know that young people, including myself, I would be hard-pressed you'd be hard-pressed to find me in a synagogue. So we founded all these learning communities, these free yeshivot, we had retreats, we had everything but going back to a synagogue. Synagogue was nothing that was user-friendly. It was also the time of the Vietnam War. If you were a little bit different, if you were close to the war, the synagogue was the establishment. And Shlomo came about around that time, and he offered a whole vision of Judaism that was heartful and had tremendous depth. And he was a little bit anti-establishment himself. He was haunted by the synagogue. Haunted him because they felt that he was Hasidim there, Iranian, all wanted to know why you have long hair. Why do you have long hair? It's a style. And they would say, what about the beads? Why do you need the beads? It's the 60s. Deal with the broken hair. But what they really wanted to know was why Shlomo had this jeweler in Jerusalem made for him.
Why are you wearing the big Magenta?
So he said to them, you know, where I go, you cannot go. And where I go, I need this. I need this. So here we were, this was a Fabrengen, and a group of ragtag Shlomo Hasidim who looked like they stepped out of Haight Ashbury in, circa 1965, landed in...
Talk a little louder, please. This is the microphone.
Landed in New York at this Fabrengen. It was the eve of Shlomo's wedding, and the Novovo Rebbe's had, saw Shlomo coming in with his Hasidim, and he motioned us over. You have to understand, there are thousands of Hasidim filled up this huge hall. There's the Rebbe, he's sitting in a dish with all the Mekubadim of the community, all the special Rabbanim, who constituted the Baba line, and he calls Shlomo over. Shlomo comes over, and I happen to be carrying his books. So I'm with him, standing next to the Rebbe, and he says to Shlomo, stand over here. I put the books down. There's a stack of books this high. Shlomo's leaning on the books. I'm with him, standing with him there. And the Rebbe starts his Fabrengen, speaks for about a half hour in Yiddish. Then he turns to Shlomo and he says to him, "Nu, was meinst du? What do you have to say about this? Can you give it over what I just gave over?" So Shlomo, in like 2 sentences, does a tzimtzum, he does a contraction of what he just heard. And first of all, it was silence, drop dead silence in the room. And then as he stops speaking, like, a sign of recognition, he really got it. He really got it. So it was this very special relationship that he had with several courts of Hasidim. While he might have been shunted by a certain, part of orthodoxy and the establishment of the Jewish community, amongst Hasidut and the Hasidic Rebbe, he was a Ben Bait. And that includes, I'm sure many of you have seen, the classical picture of Shlomo sitting with the Frierdiker Rebbe, and wearing, the Rebbe's wearing a brown fedora, and Shlomo's wearing a brown fedora. By the way, there was a time when they weren't black, they were brown. And Shlomo's sitting right next to the Rebbe because he was like a Ben Bait. Whenever he came to 770 and came to see the Rebbe, everybody cleared out, everybody created a space for him to go in there and spend time with the Rebbe. So there's a big upheaval going on in Jewish life today. First of all, there isn't a synagogue where you don't hear Shlomo Nusach. By the way, a couple of years ago, I ran into David Ellenson, who's the dean of the Reform school, and I said to him, how are things going? How's your rabbinical school going? He said to me, you wouldn't know this, you wouldn't guess, but our most popular service at the Reform school is our Friday night Mevarchim HaChodesh. The rest of the new month, we do this big Friday night service. We usually do Shlomo Nusach. And he says that's the most popular service that we have at the Reform. HUC Rabbinical School. And
You're lucky to have a Friday night service.
listen,
A lot of them don't have Friday
we
night
have a
service.
Friday night service. We've got a Shlomo
Right,
service.
a lot of them don't have Friday night service.
In my own community, one Friday night on the Mevarchi Machodesh, one of the young people got up to lead the services, and I commented to his grandfather. I said, you know, that was really beautiful. And I said to him, you know, because he's an academic, the grandfather is an academic, his name is Professor Rotenberg, he's a psychologist, Jewish psychologist. And I said to him, because I thought it would resonate with him, I said, you know, I just spoke to David Hartman, alav shalom. He said to me that Shlomo saved Jewish prayer from boredom. And I said to the grandfather, you know, your grandson just was beautiful. But David Hartman says, Shlomo saved Jewish prayer from boredom. He says, what are you talking about? Saved Jewish prayer. He says, he saved Judaism. So this Professor Rotenberg said to me, you know, I was studying in Berkeley in the 60s, and I was at the House of Love and Prayer, and I witnessed these people coming in droves, people with no contact, with no connection to Judaism, who came in and never left. It's like they made Shabbos, and then they said, you know, what now? And Shlomo said, come to study at the House of Love and Prayer, and when they were there, they said, well, what now? And he said, well, come on to Israel and have a little Mashal, come there and come and study and learn there. And that was sort of the genesis of the whole 60s for the Shlomo movement, because he brought a lot of people. I can guarantee you he brought more people than the Sochnut and all of their emissaries. He was probably the best emissary for Tzionut and Eretz Israel and Yerushalayim. So anyway, I've taken more time than I was looking for.
Can I say that?
But yes, please.
1969.
Introduce yourself again, please.
Steve Jacob.
Steve,
Jacob.
are you a Reform rabbi?
No, it's Rick Jacobs.
I lived in Israel for 35 years. And 1969, after I finished university, and I modified my thinking about dot, and my wife-to-be told me in uncertain terms, if I don't start learning, you know, lo b'cheshbon, right? So just as Carlebach had a concert in New York University, and I went to him, I went backstage and I spoke to him, and I asked him, where should I go learn? Where he told me to go learn, I ended up learning there. And Baruch Hashem, everything is history. You know, one of my sons is a Rav, and he's been in Israel 35 years, and you know, there we go, and 21 grandchildren. So you know, it happened, it worked. But I wanted to ask you, did he wear also different hats in terms of, you know, you were saying that, was that part of his identity to wear beads and to wear the Magen David, or did he reflect the people that he was dealing with in order to affect them? Because he could have been the Rosh Yeshiva in a big yeshiva also if he wanted to, but that wasn't. He chose to go a different road, right? But he had. So I'm just wondering if he could have, you know. Why didn't the traditional Orthodoxy couldn't identify with him? Did he modify his ways with them at all?
It's a murkav. It has the layers to what you're saying. First of all, the beads were obviously the entry to the conversation at the time. Everybody wore beads. You did.
I did too.
Okay. Shlomo used to say as a recognition. Yeah. No, it was just the way.
My wife, when we first got married, the first kippah that she made for me was a piece yarmulke.
All right. No, I think it was a way for him to relate. I mean, that's the way he related. It's just what was going on.
And another question, in terms of Yaqub and Yosef, as he preferred Yosef, was there, you didn't mention it, but was there identification? Did he see himself, did Yaqub see himself in Yosef and as a similar personality, similar, you know, as a...
Did he identify with him?
Did he identify with him personally, not just the idea of survival, but was he the kind of personality that he had that was most like Yaqub?
My co-conspirator, Ruvain Goldfarb,
I just mentioned something to Joe in the parking
we
lot.
were
on the way
talking
over,
about it.
and I pointed out that Yaakov himself had to leave the land to go to Padan Aram to find a wife, to escape the dangers that existed for him and his family. And he knew by Nevuah that his son Yosef was going to go down to Egypt. So already the extra thing he gave him was to help him survive in Golus, because he himself had a taste of Golus, and then everybody else followed. So if Jacob hadn't gone down willingly, he would have had to gone in chains. So
The way Shlomo teaches that Yosef from a very young age prayed that he would be able to go instead of his brothers, instead of his father, that he alone would take that burden on himself.
the whole family knew from Avraham Avinu's vision that this is the destiny of the family.
But you were alluding to something other than that as well. We'll get back to it.
Well, they say that Yosef resembled Rachel. And Rachel,
Right. When he looked at Yosef, he saw the face of his.
lifelong love. So it was that.
Let me bring in some other perspectives. I was bowled over by this book. We've been waiting for the book for a long time. Rabbi Joe came to me with those little posters a year ago, and it said, in time for Hanukkah. That was last year's Hanukkah.
Almost made it, but
We almost had a book launching in the old store, but no, I waited for this one. It sort of reminds me of somehow having to go to Egypt, whatever, having to go to the right place at the right time. And there were a number of things that touched me very much personally I'd like to share. And I have a different relationship to all of this because among the Batikim sitting here, I'm the guy who didn't become a Shlomo Chassid. I certainly could have, and I didn't. I was looking for a new form of Judaism, Matim Nizmanenu, then in the 60s and 70s. And I loved the House of Love and Prayer. And I saw great Derek there, but I'm third generation conservative Jew. I grew up at a family table where we said, what do we keep and what do we let go of from Masoret Israel and why? This was my Jewish conversation for my whole lifetime. And I get to San Francisco and I say to my buddies, how do you decide what to keep and what to let go of? And they look at me, no, we're Bali Tshuva. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to rain on your parade. I think what you're doing is great, but it's very original. And okay, we'll talk about it. We'll just do it. Say it. And I really, R.A. Cooper Smith, to me, was the Rebbe I would have followed, but he wouldn't let me take him as his Rebbe. He was the Chassid of Shlomo. So Yankel and I go back to then. I was researching for the Jewish catalog. The one thing I published is Josh Heckelman was the Challah section in the Jewish catalog. And my next project was to do a serious section on Avodah Zarah. What's kosher and what's treif of Eastern religion from a Jewish point of view. And I met Yankel, and Yankel says to me, oh, I'm coming from pure Avodah Zarah. I was a Christian devotee. Oh my God. I decided not to write the article. And there's bits and pieces of my history in this book too. And I just want to share a little bit of that. I remember the night when Shlomo and Moshe Idel were at Yakar. And I remember the story slightly differently. Idel gave this very impressive presentation of 4 types of Kabbalists. And Shlomo got up and it was like, and he says,
what am I going to say? This is the professor. And me, and everybody's waiting. I wish someone was going to describe himself. Me, I'm a simple Jew. And the whole audience, it says the women, maybe it was the women, I was with them, goes, "Oi, Shlomo, give us a break." And Shlomo backtracks and he says, "Me, I'm me." And everybody relaxes. Yes, totally. Shlomo, you are Shlomo. There's no question about that. You don't have to defend it or explain it. We get it totally. No problem. And then he goes on. I was also one of the holy beggars at the wedding. You were one of the mockers, and I was one of the holy beggars, and they didn't really want to let in.
One of the people that crashed?
Crashed. It's a Shlomo wedding. Come on, Gavalt.
Really?
We've been called
The whole
holy
world
beggars
was-
for
yeah, the whole world
years.
was
You know,
invited.
we've been told the whole world is invited for years. How can we not show up? Chas v'sholom. And it really felt like we were being inappropriate, but they tolerated us for a while, and then we left, and we got something to eat. And we saw the chasana. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. But really, what I got from this book, I got how anchored Shlomo was in the world of yeshiva learning. How that was so much the path not taken that accompanied him his whole life. And the incredible bridge he was extending out of that very yeshivish world to this very open world of welcoming everyone. And that's what he was doing. He was making this bridge. And I got it in a way that I didn't get it all those years I was hanging out around Shlomo, and I got it now. And Baruch Hashem, you know. I found my way to Reb Zalman, who was the other really gadol hador of our times. The two alternative Judaisms, the two applications of Jewish spirituality for our time, where we could talk more comparatively and more critically about different things. And then I was still looking for simple and deep, and wound up with the Sufi shape because I need simple and deep. But it's good to come back to Shlomo. And Yeshkoach on this book that shows so many different facets and gives such an opportunity to see through different people's eyes, different facets of this great teacher of our times. So want to hear from Ruvain, and we want to hear some songs from
I'm
Yaqub.
still on your question of why didn't he become a Rosh Yeshiva?
He did, in my opinion. He became a Rosh Yeshiva, if you want to think of it, of Kacham HaTzibur HaGadol.
Yeah, well, that's how he perceived himself. He thought it was too limiting. He really felt constrained by the world, the Yeshiva world. Yeah, and remember, he was in...
And affiliated, with no affiliate, not having to affiliate, not to
Well,
categorize.
at a certain point, you know, they went to Lubavitch, they were misnagdim, and they went to Lubavitch to learn. And he told me that he needed to have his heart open to Chassidut, because it fed his neshama, and the other stuff didn't feed him. That's why he went Chassidish away. But it's like Naomi says, he really perceived himself in a grander, in a much larger setting of the yeshiva world.
It was like pulling the guitar out at the airport, pulling the guitar out wherever.
There was an exercise we did. After Reb Zalman introduced me to the study of Hasidic texts and translating some Hasidic texts, it put me on the kind of my life path of a translator and editor of spiritual teachings. And I focused on Reb Nachman. Well, we sat down, I don't even remember who we was, but it was somehow in a Zalman context. We took a transcript of a Shlomo teaching and we looked up all the Hasidic references. And I was blown away. Because Shlomo made it look kind of superficial. It was too easy. But when you sat down and you looked up all the sources, my gosh, he was doing for Chassidut what Chassidut was doing for the Zohar and for the Ari. He was translating Chassidut for our times. And with the Kalim that Zalman enabled me to acquire, I was able to understand Shlomo from a whole another level. And I was very glad I had that experience. Let's hear some music.
Okay, I'll start with a song that, Shlomo said if I write a song at your wedding or in your house or your Sheva brachas or a bar mitzvah that you're having or whatever it may be. So that's a sign, it means that your neshama is part of that song. So 1972, in the house of the crib, it's on Judah Street. So someone came to my house for lunch, and in the middle of the meal, he started tapping on the table and singing. And this is the song he sang.
Russia?
And no, no.
But you made such an impact there too.
You went, no, you went to Poland. You went to Poland?
No.
No. There is a film that's being made as we speak about Shlomo going to Russia and Poland and meeting these adult children of survivors who were actually raised by Polish non-Jews. They were given over as people
They
were
were
being...
the survivors.
Yeah, they were survivors.
Parents weren't survivors.
Survived, the parents did not survive. Yeah, so they're making a movie about Shlomo being in Poland. Yeah.
There is a CD I just discovered of Shlomo's concert in
Right.
South Africa. Amazing.
It's a good concert.
Other keshers with South Africa, but wow.
He was, I heard this interview, he was being interviewed on South African radio, and they talked to some people who met him, and they said, "Oh yeah, I met Master Jesus in the streets." They recognized that he was an elevated soul, and so their way of relating with Master Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a good concert, by the way.
Yeah.
He was almost tar and feathered and kicked out of the country because of his hugging women.
In South Africa.
In South Africa, yeah, they put a harem on it. And, but anyhow, we've forgiven them since.
I put Shlomo to a test. I had a very, very dear friend who was a charismatic Christian prayer leader named Sister Ruth Heflin. It's a very special lady. And she had all kinds of connections. She ministered to the heads of states of all the countries in the world. But she told me about how close she was with Reb Shlomo. And I know when I went there to pray, they would pray to the Lord instead of to Jesus. If there were any Jews there, they would make it to the Lord. Maybe Shlomo didn't know that I come from a Jewish background. We're trying to avoid Lord language, but never mind. Okay. And I remember walking into Yaqub with Sister Ruth, and Shlomo was in the middle of a shaver, and he stopped whatever he was doing. As soon as she walked in, he said, "Sister Ruth, where you been all my life?" Yes, there is a connection. She actually organized his first concert at the Royal Albert Hall. She said the first time she saw him, Shlomo perform, she watched this rabbi waddle out onto the stage with a guitar, which he didn't play very well. And then she watched as the Holy Spirit channeled through his mouth for 4 hours. And she said, "I didn't know they had charismatic Judaism."
After Shlomo passed away, it suddenly became apparent that he had tremendous influence, not just on Jews, but on other religionists as well. And one of them was an order of nuns here in Jerusalem called the Sisters of Zion, Zion, who were very close to him. They all came to the funeral, I remember. And then one evening I'm invited, years after Shlomo's passed away, I'm invited to somewhere out in the Baseret. There's a home where a dozen Christian types are living, and a part of their expression of worship is Gilo. Part of their expression was to sing his music. That was their thing, and they didn't call it worship or prayer, but it was just like part of what they did every day. They got together, and a little kumzitz of Shlomo's music. And I mean, I couldn't place these people. You know how you try to classify, try to, in your own mind, understand where people are coming from. They were not Christians. They were like, you want to say they're Seventh-day Adventists, but they weren't Seventh-day Adventists. They were just Shabbat observing. They never officially converted. They were Shabbat observers. So I asked them how it is that they're here, what brings them here. So they told me the story that after the 6-Day War, they had come here during the war to be a part of the war effort, to help in the war. And when the war was over, they didn't want to leave. So in the Knesset, they created a special status for this group. And they allowed them as, called them friends at the gate, Shomrei Ashar. And they gave them this status that allowed them to live their life in Israel. And sure enough, they lived and they died here. There are a few children who are left of that community. But they were wonderful, wonderful, amazing people. And what was unique about them was that every member of that community was a musician. So when we had these gatherings, they would pull out their instruments. There was a ukulele, a guitar, a violin, and they played this old-time. It was spiritual music, but without any references to Yoshka. It was like, but it was certainly biblical, wonderful, and they loved Israel. But when I asked them how it is that they even thought about coming and volunteering for the war effort, they said, well, we were down in Kansas one day and we ran into this Jewish rabbi who played music. And he said to us, y'all come to Israel now. And that's how they got here. It's just wild.
It was Shlomo.
It was Shlomo.
Of course. But you tell me a story. Another story.
He said, they said that, well, he was our Aliyah Shaliach. He was like, told us to come. And they came here and they not only helped in the war effort, some of them, a couple of them were actually inhalation therapists working at Herzog. They were all gainfully employed in some way in the society. But most of all, they were Shlomo fans, Shlomo Hasidim. Made him very unique. So, now Shlomo had a moshav here. He sang, he wrote songs at the moshav. Something that comes to you that pops up that he wrote at the moshav. Would you remember?
I remember one Motzi Shabbos, and it was just like Kiddush Levana time of the month, sanctifying the moon. And we were walking Motzi Shabbos from the Beit Knesset to his house. And in front of the Beit Knesset, in the Moshav, there's a little forest. And just at the edge of the forest, just before you go out towards the circle there, towards his house, so he started singing this, but it was like a bolt of lightning the way it came down. Sometimes someone write a song, it could take him weeks. First he get the first part, and then he'd have a few second parts, but he would go together until he came back. It would take him weeks, months, who knows how long, right? But then sometimes just like right at the end. So this song, Motzi Shabbos, Kiddush Levana, it fell out of him, but like lightning just came right into him, and he started singing and dancing like crazy. And Baruch Hashem Ben Zion Solomon remembered the notes, so we have the song.
book.
Thank you. Well, all right. I think one of the points Joe always made when we were compiling the book, and he wrote himself in his own preface and his introduction, is that Shlomo's Torah is a Torah of the heart. So I picked out a couple of things to share with you tonight, 3 pieces from Shlomo's teachings that exemplify this particular gift he had of reaching the hearts of his, anyone who chose to associate themselves with him in a casual way or in a personal way, in a deep way. He had something for everybody, and just as Yaqub said, he looked at the book and he suddenly got it about Shlomo, and he's certainly been around long enough to have gotten it, you'd think, but there's different levels of getting it. And I think for some people, it's like the search for the lost chord. When Shlomo strums that chord, all of a sudden, a wave of electricity goes through the room, and we all kind of lighten up, and then he's able to give us everything he has, because we're open to it. But he has to open the door for us. Hopefully we're coming with the expectation that there will be an open door. So let me read it. We don't have time to do a lot, but I thought of this one, and maybe a little bit of a Hanukkah teaching, and who maybe wants me to read my own. Let's start with this. So Parsha Mitzorah, everybody knows that Tsuris, there's something that's like leprosy, afflicted Jews in ancient times. It was like a spiritual disease that came from opening your flap too much, speaking inappropriately, Lashon Hara. So this is really a teaching on Lashon Hara because it's a discussion of that parsha, and this is where he takes it. Friends, I want you to know, there are so many things in Yiddishkeit that you basically don't have to do. You can get away with so much. You can get away with a million things. Let me ask you, did it say anywhere that you have to say good things about Israel? Imagine after many years, I finally made a trip to the Holy Land. I saw a few good things. I also saw a few terrible things. It's not Lashon Hara for me to say the bad things that I saw, because let's face it, everybody knows it. It's public knowledge. But you know what? How could you? How could you? Okay, let's say you will ask me about my children, and I will tell you. There are a few good things about them. There are a few things that are bad about them. I have a right to say it. I'm their father. Well, how could you? Well, let's say I ask someone about their wife or about their husband, and they tell me a few parts are good and a few parts are bad. I have a right to say this. It's true. You asked me for the truth, and I'm so much into MS, I would die for the truth. I know in the whole world that I only tell the truth. Yeah, it's beautiful. But woe to that kind of beauty. I want you to know, if anyone has ever learned Hilchos Lashon Hara, you see that there are 2 million heterim for saying things, for saying whatever you want. You can mamash learn the laws of Lashon Hara and find a heter for the worst thing. For instance, last week, a boy asked me about a certain girl for a shidduch. Baruch Hashem, the Chavetz Chaim says by a shidduch, you are permitted to tell the truth about the person. Right? Baruch Hashem, the vault that I let loose. It was the greatest day of the week. Baruch Hashem, I mamash had to tell the truth. You know, it's beautiful for Dallas or for Houston, but it's not beautiful for Yerushalayim or HaKodesh. What level of truth is Yerushalayim all around? The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because we hated each other. Let me tell you the sad truth. Do you know what kind of Yiddelach were around in those days? They were all tzaddikim d'morim. They were all holy people before they hated each other. I'm sure they looked it up in the Shulchan Aruch and they found it was halacha, based on the halacha. You're permitted to hate this person, but you know something? It's all cute and sweet. But the Beis HaMikdash. And the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. And here I want you to know, I want you to open your hearts in the cheapest way. It's true. There are Yidden in the world who I'm permitted to hate. There are moments when I have the right to say Lashon Hara about everybody in the world. But how can you? Without sounding commercial, I have a little radio show on every Saturday night. From 11:30 to 1. So one Saturday night on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, I was talking about hating children. I said that maybe before Auschwitz, it wasn't so terrible to hate children. But anyone who was hitting a Jewish child after Auschwitz belongs right there in Auschwitz. because he's continuing Auschwitz. The time for hitting children is over, that's it. Gewalt, and I have calls all night long. It was heartbreaking. People would call me up telling me I am saying something which is against the Torah. They were quoting Midrashim left and right. I only said to them one thing. You know, friends, you can quote to me from here to eternity. The question is, how can you hit your child? How can you? Your child is nobody in the world. I was completely helpless. Sure, you can hit them, why not? Nobody will stop you. But Devalt, how can you? If you will tell me the whole Torah that it says Meforish explicitly in the Shulchan Aruch that you can hit your child, good. So you will go to Gan Eden, but I would rather sit in Gehenna than sit next to you. So,
And it's good to hear a little gevura from Reb Shlomo.
Yeah.
All right.
About children.
he did not mess around.
He was very
Never missed a
accepting
point.
about everything, but not about child abuse.
Okay.
No.
So, and he also,
So the Torah Chesed needs its gevura. Yeah.
he had this tremendous gift of irony, and maybe even a little bit of sarcasm. Yeah, a little bit, maybe a lot. And everybody hopefully understood what he was saying. If you took him literally, he couldn't possibly mean that. But you know right away, he's putting you on. He's using the language of someone who would find these things permitted to show you how forbidden it is, right? So I thought maybe just a little bit of teachings on Hanukkah, children and Hanukkah.
Yes.
Is this the right time?
Yeah.
We're having a children's story program
From now-
Thursday at 3 o'clock on Hanukkah.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to mention that. So let's hear about children and Hanukkah. World Children and Hanukkah.
It's mind-blowing. Hanukkah and Purim are the strongest holidays for the children. Hanukkah and Purim are Mashiach's Yom Tovim. When we celebrate the past, the adults know more. When we're celebrating the future, the kids know best. Because it says, in the future, all the holidays, forget about them. But these two, you'll keep them. I was privileged to see the way, I'm going to sit down. I was privileged to see the way the old Hasidim danced with their children, when their children got married. I saw the old Baba Rebbe dancing with his daughter. His tears of joy were flowing all the way to Yerushalayim. That is the deepest tshuva in the world. It's the deepest dancing in the world. Imagine that my daughter says to me, "Can you get me some apple juice?" I jump up to get it. My face is shining from one corner of the world to the other. I think to myself, there will be a time when she won't ask me for apple juice anymore. How precious it is every time she still asks me for something. If I'm connected to her in the deepest way, then I'm filled with joy when I can do something for her. If I'm not connected that much, I wish that I didn't have to do anything for her, even while I'm doing it. I've seen so many places where children walk through the door and there was no one to open the door for them, to bless them with honor. If the president was at the door knocking to enter, someone would be waiting by the door to greet him, to usher him through. But you don't wait for your own child, your own wife. Who told you that you have the right to not stand by the door? For me personally, when I wait for my daughter Neshama to return home from kindergarten, it feels like they're waiting during Yom Kippur. What a blessing and what an honor to open the door for my child. Can you imagine what it means to know that a child is standing by the door, to know that his or her parents are also standing by the door with the same fervor? You realize how deep it is to draw light upon each other? Can you begin to imagine how much everyone needs just a little bit of light? Just one drop of light is so deep. So we get it. That's a lovely piece of the basic thing is, the book is so loaded, it's so full of things. You can open it anywhere and go on a trip. Thank God, we were able to extract so much of his life's teachings because of modern technology. And, all the recording, Shlomo was like the Grateful Dead. He wanted people to take his concerts. He would pause in the middle of the teaching while someone turned the cassette over. Because he knew, and then, you know what else, of course, he didn't know what he said. So one time we were driving in the car, dropping him off at, what's the name of that motel in Northwood?
Where?
We were playing the tape in the car. He didn't want to get out of the car. He's listening to his own voice. He says, "Hey, pretty good, huh?" And he would come after me after a concert and he would say, "How was it?" You have to ask me slow how it was. Did you see everybody crying? Did you see everybody dancing? It's like he himself doubted. He had deep doubts about his own performance, about his own effectiveness, because he was actually so off the cuff. He sometimes sounded so casual, so like the common man. But actually, he was a perfectionist, a spiritual perfectionist. He wanted to reach everybody in the room, and that's why he scanned the whole room. Who's here? When someone comes in the door, brother, I've been missing. I was waiting for you. And no other performer, for reasons of protocol and decorum, would interrupt himself to greet a concert goer who comes in late. It's unheard of. For Shlomo, it's like the concert didn't begin until you arrived. And that's why when we gathered for a Shlomo concert, first of all, we knew he was going to be late. That wasn't the problem. We knew it. He's got things to do. He has people to see, people to meet. And people to call. And then when he came in, he had to say hello to everybody in the room. I don't know if everybody knows this. If they allowed him to hug and kiss them, hug and kiss them, shake their hand, whatever they preferred, Or if they, wanted to wall him off, he could accept it, But basically, he was there to greet everybody in the way that felt appropriate to him and to them. By the time he got to the stage, he was ready to begin. He was like tuning up all the instruments in the room, because we were all his vocalists, and his harmonizers. And so we were ready to receive, and ready to give back. And of course, when the concert was over, he stayed until the last person was ready to leave. Right? And then afterwards, we'd go over to Rabbi John Roland's and around the kitchen table and continue for another couple of hours.
And he would say, "You do me the biggest favor in the world, brother." I said, "What's that? Can you make me an omelet?" We were starved. Singing one of our, you're talking about what his intentions were. One of the contributors, Michael Odenheimer, writes about how Shlomo's mission was to heal the world, heal each individual, heal all the worlds. He saw that as his prima facie, his whole reason for being in the world was to heal the world. We know that he did a good job of it.
He wanted to shake hands with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Thank you,
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Yaqub is so cozy.
Before everybody disappears, if anybody wants a copy of the book, they're happy to check it. On Thursday, we're having a Hanukkah party of Jocelyn Moses' children's stories for children books for children of all ages, including us, in English and Hebrew. And next Sunday, we'll be celebrating the singing Rebbe of the Sufi world, Jalaluddin Rumi. So it's his Yortzeit, next Sunday night, the 17th of December. We'll have a dervish, a flute player, and a oud player, and read some Rumi poems in Hebrew. Oh, we have some readers.
live customer.
You can look at the way. You ready for a book? You want a book? Bavakasha, tistakir. Should we have one more song before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say where I come from. I live nearby now. It's in the community here. But I've lived in remote for many, many years. And every Leil Shabbat, there were about 300 to 400 people doing Carlebach Nigunim.
Which minyan is it?
It's in Bnei Kiva in remote. It's famous. Every Leil Shabbat, 300 to 400 people.
after Reb Shlomo died, my daughter Eliana, who was a teenager at the time, had this dream. And she dreamt that she and a girlfriend were walking on a road. They were singing one of Shlomo's songs, and all of a sudden this school bus drove by. And Shlomo sticks his head out of the bus and says, "Keep on singing, we can hear you in Shemayim."
Okay, testimony.
Well, thank you for warming up Terminal Carlebach. It's so good to sing and dance.
Another request.
Yes, we can have another.
I'm going to give Yaqub a bracha.
Oh, wait.
Look, he's newly established. This is like, one of several debut events that are happening this first year. It's a year of firsts. So I want to bless you that you should prosper. You should become a focal point and a center for spiritual gatherings, for joy, happiness. People should make matches here.
And roll joints.
They should receive illumination from the Sephora on the shelves that are so nicely packed, and that they should fly off the shelves and be replaced by new additions, and that your own neshama should rejoice in the accomplishments that, with God's help, you have been able to manage to foster and create in this holy space. Your parents, Mama, should smile on you from heaven. Your sister should come by and give you a hug of great love, Mama.
It was her birthday yesterday.
There you go, Sarah.
North Carolina.
And,
Deep snow.
everything that happens here should be full of meaning and purpose. And people should feel that was a really special night. And I will cherish the memory of that night, and the person I met there, the people I talked to there, the books I acquired there, the wisdom that I'm entering into because of my contact with you.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
I'll second the motion.
La, 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 la.